Keeper Killthrex adjusted his bioluminescent scales with the kind of smugness only a third-tier zoo employee could muster. Today was special. Today, the Nexus Prime Galactic Zoo would unveil its most ridiculous acquisition yet. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted life forms. Killthrex's voice boomed through the crystalline dome of Exhibit Hall 7. Behold, the galaxy's most adorable specimen. The crowd pressed forward, a mixture of Veltarian nobles with their 6 eyes gleaming, Thork merchants jangling their credit pouches, and even a few Zephyrian younglings floating on their anti-gravity pods. They had come expecting something magnificent, something terrifying, something worthy of the zoo's reputation. What they got was Marcus Kane. The human sat cross-legged on a simple rock, wearing the standard issue containment suit. 5 feet 10 inches of what the galactic community had unanimously decided was the most pathetic excuse for sentient life they'd ever encountered. No claws, no fangs, no natural armor. Not even basic telepathic abilities. Is it broken? Wheezed a Glorbonian matron, her tentacles quivering with disappointment. Perhaps it's sleeping, suggested a young Veltarian heir, poking the force field with one of his elongated fingers. Killthrex cleared his throat. The subject is fully conscious, I assure you. This is peak human behavior. Observe the primitive posture, the dull expression, the complete lack of natural defenses. A wave of laughter rippled through the crowd. Someone in the back shouted, "My pet skitter worm is more impressive." Marcus Kane didn't react. He simply sat there, brown eyes moving slowly across the crowd, taking in details. The security cameras, the ventilation systems, the emergency exits. The Keeper's access panel blinking cheerfully behind Killthrex's left shoulder. The specimen was acquired from a backwater planet called Earth. Killthrex continued, clearly enjoying his moment. Third rock from a dying star. No significant technology. No space travel. They haven't even figured out faster than light communication. More laughter. A few beings actually applauded. But wait. Killthrex raised his forearms dramatically. There's more. This species actually thinks they're intelligent. They've built crude cities, developed basic tools, and get this, they write poetry. The crowd lost it completely. Poetry. From a species that looked like it couldn't survive a light breeze. Marcus shifted slightly, and every eye in the hall focused on him. He reached down, picked up a small pebble from his enclosure floor, and began turning it over in his fingers. Such simple movements. Such primitive dexterity. Fascinating, murmured Dr. Kexlar from the back. Look how it manipulates objects with those, what do you call them? Thumbs? Opposable thumbs, Killthrex said with a dismissive wave. Hardly unique. Even the Rigelian tree sloths have those. Marcus set the pebble down carefully. Precisely. In a very specific spot. Nobody noticed. The Nexus Prime Galactic Zoo operated on a simple classification system that had kept visitors alive for over 3 centuries. Green badges meant docile, creatures so harmless they might as well be houseplants. Yellow badges indicated moderate threats, things that could give you a nasty bite, but wouldn't end your existence. Orange badges marked dangerous specimens, predators that required respect, distance, and occasionally a priest. Then there were the red badges. Beast class. Never go near the red zones alone, was the first rule every keeper learned. Never feed the beast class after midnight, was the second. Never assume the containment is perfect, was the third, and most important. Director Quentera had built her reputation on that third rule. Her 8 tentacles could operate security protocols faster than any artificial intelligence, and her paranoid attention to detail had prevented exactly 0 escapes in her 20-year tenure. Until today. The Beast class wing housed only 12 specimens, each one capable of single-handedly decimating a small moon. The Void Stalker from Kepler 442 billion could phase through solid matter and feed on electromagnetic fields. The Hive Queen of Rigel 7 commanded a telepathic swarm of 10,000 razor-sharp offspring. The plasma worm could melt through 20 feet of reinforced durasteel in under 30 seconds. But the crown jewel, the star attraction, the absolute nightmare that made even hardened galactic marines wet themselves, was the razor maw Killthrex. 15 feet of pure, unadulterated murder. Scales harder than diamond. Teeth that could shear through starship hulls. Reflexes faster than quantum processors. The intelligence rivaling the galaxy's top academics, but focused entirely on creative ways to end life. The Killthrex had been captured after it single-handedly destroyed an entire Imperial battle fleet. Not defeated. Destroyed. As in, reduced to component atoms floating in space. And right now it was having a very bad day. A containment breach. Containment breach. The zoo's emergency systems screamed across every speaker, every communicator, every neural implant within 50 kilometers. Beast-class escape. All personnel to emergency stations. Quentera's tentacles danced across her control panel with the desperation of a concert pianist whose life depended on hitting every note perfectly. It's Sector 12. Lockdown Sector 12. Deploy the neural dampeners. Where are my suppression teams? The Killthrex tore through the neural dampeners. Chief Security Officer Brack Tun's voice crackled through the comm system. It's learning our countermeasures. Adapting faster than we can deploy them. Through the main viewing portal, Quentera watched in horror as the razor maw Killthrex systematically dismantled everything in its path. Security drones? Sliced into pretty metal confetti. Containment barriers? Dissolved by its acidic breath. Suppression teams? Running for their lives while screaming in 17 different languages. Evacuate the public areas. Quentera commanded. Get everyone to the safe zones. Seal the emergency bulkheads. Ma AM. Keeper Zalthex's voice cut through the chaos. The safe zone evacuation routes run past the docile exhibits, including the new human specimen. The human? Quentera's attention split between the rampaging Killthrex and this minor detail. What about it? What about it? Should we move it? The evacuation crowds will pass right by its enclosure. On her screens, the Killthrex had just finished turning a squad of security mechs into abstract art. It was moving toward the main exhibit halls with the methodical patience of something that knew it had all the time in the world to kill everything in sight. The human stays put, Quentera decided. It's docile class. Harmless. We have bigger problems than worrying about one pathetic little bite. She had no idea how wrong she was about to be. The evacuation alarms continued wailing as thousands of panicked visitors streamed through the corridors, past exhibits containing creatures from across the galaxy, past the singing crystals of Vega, past the floating jellyfish of Andromeda, and past one very quiet human who was still sitting on his rock, still turning that pebble over in his fingers, still watching everything with those deceptively calm brown eyes. Priority 1 is containing the Killthrex. Director Quentera announced to her crisis team, her tentacles weaving complex patterns across multiple control interfaces. Everything else is secondary. What about the human specimen? Asked Dr. Velnax, the zoo's chief xenobiologist, his crystalline head tilted with academic curiosity even in the midst of chaos. The evacuation route passes directly through its sector. Quentera didn't even look up from her screens. It's a docile class primate, Velnax. It can sit there and contemplate its belly button while the adults handle the real crisis. Dr. Mordun, Velnax's research partner, buzzed his insectoid wings in disagreement. With respect, Director, our preliminary studies suggest the human may possess above-average problem-solving capabilities for its classification level. Above average for what? A houseplant? Quentera's sarcasm could have stripped paint. Look at it. The main screen split to show Marcus Kane in his enclosure. He had moved from his rock to the corner of his habitat, where he was methodically gathering small objects. A loose bolt from his feeding mechanism, a thin wire from the ventilation grate, a small shard of transparent aluminum from the viewing barrier's base. See? Velnax pointed with one of his forearms. Tool use. That's significant. My pet squib makes tools too, snorted Security Chief Brackton. It builds little nests out of my furniture cushions. Doesn't make it Einstein. Marcus had arranged his collected items in a precise pattern. To the casual observer, it looked like random fidgeting. To someone who knew what to look for, it was the methodical preparation of someone who understood leverage, trajectory, and structural weak points. None of the aliens knew what to look for. The specimen is demonstrating basic manipulative behavior, Dr. Mordaunt observed clinically. Perhaps we should consider temporary relocation until the crisis passes. Absolutely not. Quentara's decision was final. We're not wasting resources on moving a harmless pet when we have a galaxy-class predator loose in our facility. The human stays exactly where it is. But the evacuation crowd's Velnax began. We'll walk past a docile biped and continue to safety. End of discussion. On the screen, Marcus had fashioned something that looked suspiciously like a primitive cutting tool from the wire and aluminum shard. He tested its edge against his thumb, drawing a tiny bead of red blood. Fascinating, murmured Dr. Velnax, self-inflicted injury to test tool effectiveness. That demonstrates forward planning and risk assessment. Or it demonstrates that it's too stupid to avoid sharp objects, Brackton countered. My credits are on stupid. Marcus wiped the blood on his containment suit and began working on the bolt, using it as a fulcrum with his improvised cutting tool. Within minutes, he had fashioned what appeared to be a basic prying device. Primitive engineering, Mordaunt noted with something approaching respect. Crude, but effective within its limitations. It's playing with garbage, Quentara dismissed. While we're debating the intellectual capacity of a zoo animal, the Killthrex is 3 sectors away from the main visitor areas. Focus, people. The evacuation streams began flooding past Marcus's exhibit. Thousands of panicked beings of every conceivable species, fleeing in organized chaos toward the emergency exits. Children crying, adults shouting, everyone focused on getting as far away from the beast-class wing as possible. Marcus watched them all. Learning, calculating, planning. And none of them had any idea what was really happening behind those calm brown eyes. The evacuation crowds had barely cleared the corridor when Marcus Kane made his move. The improvised prying tool slipped between the force field generator's access panel with the precision of a master locksmith. 3 careful twists, and the supposedly impenetrable barrier flickered once, twice, then died completely. Wait, Dr. Velnax stared at his monitoring station in disbelief. The containment field in Sector 7 just went offline. Director Quentara glanced at the readout with irritation. System malfunction. We'll repair it after we deal with the real emergency. But that's the human sector. So, what's it going to do? Wander around lost until someone finds it? Marcus stepped out of his enclosure with the casual confidence of someone who had been planning this moment since his arrival. He moved through the empty corridor like he owned it, heading directly toward the nearest security control node. The alien technology that had baffled the galaxy's greatest scientists for centuries. Marcus had been watching, learning, understanding. Quentara. Velnax's voice carried a tremor of something between excitement and terror. The human it's accessing a security terminal. That's impossible. The interface requires quantum-level cognitive processing. On the screen, Marcus had his hands inside the control panel, manipulating components with the skill of someone who understood the fundamental principles at work. Not the specific alien engineering, but the universal laws that governed all technology. He's rerouting power conduits, Dr. Mordaunt whispered. That should require a degree in xenotechnical engineering. Marcus wasn't working from knowledge. He was working from pure, terrifying intelligence. Every movement was purposeful. Every adjustment was calculated. He was reading the technology like a language he had spoken all his life. Alert! Alert! The security system's voice had changed. Instead of the standard evacuation warnings, it was now announcing something else entirely. Containment breach in Sector 12 tracked and locked. Deploying countermeasures. I didn't authorize any countermeasures, Quentara snapped. Neither did I, Bracton replied, his mandibles clicking nervously. Marcus had hijacked their entire security network. The razor maw Killthrex, meanwhile, was having the time of its life. It had just finished decorating the walls of Sector 15 with what used to be a maintenance crew when something unexpected happened. The corridor lights went out. Not all of them, just specific ones, creating shadows, blind spots, corridors of darkness that seemed to lead in obvious directions but actually channeled movement toward very specific locations. It's hurting the Killthrex, Velnax breathed. The human is actually hurting it. That's ridiculous. How could it possibly understand our facility layout? Marcus had spent 3 weeks in his enclosure. 3 weeks watching the staff move, listening to conversations, observing patterns. He had memorized every corridor, every junction, every system weakness. What the aliens saw as primitive observation was actually strategic reconnaissance. The Killthrex, following what it thought was prey scent through the darkened corridors, walked directly into Marcus's first trap, artificial gravity generator, recalibrated to create a localized field of crushing force. The Killthrex stumbled, momentarily disoriented as its inner ear struggled to adapt to the sudden gravitational shift. Impossible, Quentera muttered. The gravity controls require administrative clearance. Marcus had bypassed administrative clearance 12 minutes ago. He was currently 3 systems ahead of their security protocols, turning their own zoo into a weapon against their most dangerous prisoner. Environmental controls next. The temperature in Sector 12 dropped 30 degrees in 15 seconds. The Killthrex's reptilian biology immediately began slowing down, its reflexes dulling as its metabolism struggled to compensate. He knows, Dr. Mordun realized with dawning horror. He knows exactly what type of creature the Killthrex is and how to counter its biological advantages. How? We never told him anything about our other specimens. Marcus had been listening, watching. When Keeper Zalthex bragged about the zoo's attractions to visitors, when the scientific staff discussed specimen care, when security briefings were held within earshot of his enclosure, Marcus had absorbed every word. The atmospheric processors activated next, flooding specific corridors with a dense, obscuring mist. The Killthrex's enhanced senses, normally its greatest advantage, became a liability as it was overwhelmed by conflicting chemical signals. "This is systematic," Velnax whispered. "He's neutralizing every one of the Killthrex's natural advantages in sequence. That would require understanding our entire facility's infrastructure, in xenobiology, and tactical planning, and about 15 other fields of expertise that supposedly primitive species shouldn't possess." Marcus appeared on a security camera, moving through the facility with purpose. He wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He was positioning himself for the final phase of his plan. "Where is he going?" Quentera demanded. Dr. Mordun checked the schematics. Sector 9. The power distribution hub. What's he planning to do there? They were about to find out. And they were absolutely not prepared for the answer. The power distribution hub hummed with enough energy to light a small city. Marcus stood in the center of it all, surrounded by conduits, transformers, and enough raw electrical current to vaporize most organic life forms. He was completely calm. "Target acquired," he said quietly, though no one was listening. The words weren't for the aliens monitoring him. They were for himself. A final confirmation that everything was ready. The razor maw Killthrex burst through the reinforced doorway like a living missile, its 15-foot frame filling the entrance with pure, concentrated death. Scales that had deflected military-grade plasma weapons gleamed under the harsh lighting. Claws that could shred starship hulls left gouges in the metal floor. Eyes that had watched civilizations burn now focused on the tiny figure standing impossibly still in the room's center. "Well," Marcus said conversationally, "you're uglier than I expected." The Killthrex paused. In its centuries of existence, across dozens of worlds and hundreds of battles, nothing had ever spoken to it with such casual disrespect. Prey ran. Prey screamed. Prey begged. Prey did not offer commentary on its appearance. "What are you?" The Killthrex's voice was like grinding stone, each word forced through vocal cords designed for roaring. "Me?" Marcus shifted his weight slightly, and the Killthrex's predator instincts screamed warnings it didn't understand. "I'm just a harmless little pet. At least that's what your friends upstairs keep saying." In the control room, Director Quintera watched in fascination and horror as the galaxy's most feared predator hesitated. Actually hesitated. In front of a 5'10" human wearing a zoo jumpsuit. "This is impossible," she whispered. "Nothing makes the Killthrex pause." The human's positioning, Dr. Velnax observed, his scientific mind working despite the terror. He's not just standing there randomly. Look at where he placed himself. Marcus stood exactly 3 feet from the main power coupling, 2 feet from the emergency shutdown controls, and precisely 6 inches from what appeared to be nothing important but was actually the hub's primary load balancer. "He's turned himself into a living trap," Dr. Mordun breathed. The Killthrex lunged forward with supernatural speed, claws extended to end this strange little creature in a single swipe. Marcus didn't dodge. Instead, he dropped to one knee and slammed his palm against the floor. The emergency shutdown he had rigged 15 minutes earlier activated instantly. Every light in the sector died simultaneously, plunging the hub into absolute darkness. But Marcus had been preparing for this moment. He had memorized every surface, every obstacle, every potential weapon in the room. The Killthrex crashed into the space where Marcus had been standing, finding only empty air and the distinct sensation that it had just been outsmarted by something it could crush with its smallest claw. Surprise, Marcus's voice came from somewhere in the darkness, impossible to pinpoint. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting everything in hellish red. The Killthrex spun around, searching for its prey, and found Marcus hanging from the ceiling support structure like some kind of bipedal spider. "How did you?" The creature's confusion was evident. "Upper body strength. You might want to look into it." Marcus dropped from the ceiling, but not toward the ground. He launched himself directly at the Killthrex's head, something no sane creature had ever attempted. The Killthrex, trained by millennia of evolution to expect prey to flee, not attack, reacted a split second too slowly. Marcus landed on its skull, grabbed 2 of its sensory spines, and used them as leverage to swing himself onto its back. "You know what your problem is?" Marcus said, maintaining his grip as the Killthrex thrashed like an earthquake. "You think size matters." He reached into his jumpsuit and pulled out a device he had cobbled together from spare parts during his weeks of captivity. It looked like nothing more than a metal tube with wires sticking out. "This is a neural disruptor," Marcus explained, as if giving a lecture while riding a bucking monster. "I built it from your own security systems. Took me forever to figure out the power requirements." "Impossible. You lack the technological understanding." "I lack your technology. I don't lack understanding." Marcus jammed the device against the base of the Killthrex's skull and activated it. The effect was immediate. The creature's movements became erratic, its perfect coordination shattered as conflicting signals flooded its nervous system. It stumbled, crashed into a power conduit, and sent sparks cascading across the room. "Neural disruption temporary," the Killthrex snarled, fighting through the interference. "When it wears off, you die slowly." "Who says I'm planning to wait that long?" Marcus rolled off the creature's back and landed next to the main power coupling he had been standing near earlier. The coupling he had been secretly modifying while everyone thought he was just playing with garbage. "You see, I learned something interesting about your species during my stay here," Marcus said, backing toward the coupling. "Your scales can deflect energy weapons, plasma fire, even nuclear bombardment. Impressive stuff." The Killthrex advanced, shaking off the neural disruption's effects with terrifying speed. "But you know what they can't handle?" Marcus's hand found the manual override he had installed. Directed electromagnetic pulse at exactly the right frequency to disrupt your nervous system's bioelectric field. "That knowledge does not exist in your primitive databases?" You're right, it doesn't. Marcus smiled, and for the first time, the Killthrex felt something it had never experienced before. Fear. I figured it out myself. 23 days, 4 hours, 16 minutes of observation and calculation. Amazing what you can accomplish when you're supposedly just a harmless pet. Marcus pulled the override. The power coupling discharged every amp of stored energy in a focused burst designed specifically to overload Killthrex biology. The creature that had destroyed battle fleets, that had been feared across the galaxy, that had never known defeat, collapsed like a marionette with cut strings. In the control room, every alien present stared in absolute silence. Did that human just Quentera began? Defeat our most dangerous prisoner using nothing but improvised technology and tactical intelligence. Dr. Velnax finished. Yes, it did. Marcus stood over the unconscious Killthrex, breathing hard but victorious. And that, he said to no one in particular, is why you never underestimate the small guy. The razor maw Killthrex lay motionless on the power hub floor, its massive form twitching occasionally as residual electromagnetic pulses coursed through its nervous system. Marcus Kane stood beside it, checking his improvised neural disruptor with the casual air of someone who had just fixed a broken household appliance. Containment successful, he announced to the security cameras, knowing full well that every alien in the facility was watching. Your beast-class problem has been neutralized. In the control room, the silence stretched so long that Dr. Velnax began to wonder if his auditory processors had malfunctioned. That actually happened? Keeper Zalthex whispered. The human, the cute little pet, just took down the Killthrex? Director Quentera's 8 tentacles had gone completely limp. She stared at the screens showing Marcus calmly securing the unconscious predator with restraints fashioned from power cables. This is impossible, she muttered. The Killthrex destroyed an entire Imperial fleet. It killed 300 trained soldiers. It has never been defeated in combat. Until today, Dr. Mordun added quietly. Security Chief Brack-Tun was frantically checking his data logs. The power consumption readings the electromagnetic pulse he generated the calculations required to target the Killthrex's specific neural frequency. This level of engineering that should be beyond any known primitive species. Primitive. Dr. Velnax repeated the word like it had suddenly become foreign. We called them primitive. On the screen, Marcus was performing what appeared to be a medical check on his unconscious opponent. He examined its breathing, tested its reflexes, even adjusted its position to ensure proper circulation. The same creature that had terrorized half the galaxy was being treated with the care of a concerned veterinarian. He's making sure it's comfortable, Zalthex observed in bewilderment. Of course he is, Quentera said slowly, a new understanding dawning in her voice. But he never intended to kill it. The entire confrontation was designed for incapacitation, not destruction. Strategic restraint, Dr. Mordun buzzed his wings in amazement. He possessed the capability to eliminate the threat permanently, but chose not to. That demonstrates a level of tactical sophistication and moral reasoning that we completely missed. Marcus looked directly up at one of the security cameras, as if he could see through it to the aliens watching him. You might want to send a medical team, he said conversationally. Your Killthrex will wake up in about 2 hours with nothing worse than a headache and a bruised ego. Though you might want to review your containment protocols. This one has some serious design flaws. The evacuation crowds were being allowed back into the facility, and already word was spreading. The human. The harmless little biped. The zoo's newest, most pathetic attraction had just accomplished what an entire galactic military couldn't. Ma. Zalthex's voice was barely above a whisper. What do we do now? Quentera watched Marcus begin sketching diagrams on the floor with a piece of charred metal, apparently designing improved containment systems for future emergencies. We reclassify, she said finally. Immediately. And we pray to whatever deities are listening that there aren't more of them out there. More humans? More of whatever that thing actually is. Because one thing was absolutely certain, Marcus Kane was no pet. And Earth was definitely not as primitive as they had thought. 3 months later, the Nexus Prime Galactic Zoo unveiled its completely redesigned classification system. There were the simple color codes. In their place stood a new category that made even the most hardened xenobiologists nervous. Classification: unknown potential. Subject human. Subject human. Status: under observation by the Galactic Council's Strategic Threat Assessment Division. Marcus Kane now resided in what the zoo politely called a collaborative research habitat, but what everyone knew was the most sophisticated containment facility ever constructed. Not to keep him in, but to keep everyone else safe while he worked alongside alien scientists to redesign their entire understanding of intelligence, strategy, and what constituted a threat. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations had spent eons categorizing species by their obvious physical advantages: claws, fangs, armor, size, psychic abilities. They had never considered that the most dangerous predator might be the one that looked completely harmless. Dr. Velnax filed his final report with trembling appendages. Recommendation: immediate diplomatic contact with planet Earth. Priority: critical. Reason: if this is what they consider an average specimen, we cannot afford to underestimate what their actual warriors might be capable of. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Never, ever underestimate Earth's children.